On his trail, Mr. Nick Cave!
Morning star talks as it seems of lonely ideas on Tom Waits' wings. Backseat boy with angry songs hits hard walls, righting wrongs. Out of the dark comes Nick Cave, talking sounds both deep and brave. Nick Cave.
Yes, Nick, you like to lurk about in churches, soaking up the atmosphere and obviously getting reacquainted with various bits of the Bible. Do you have any favourites to lurk about in?
Churches. The Brompton Oratory is my favourite church.
Yes.
It's in London.
Yes.
I haven't been to any churches here.
No. And how did you arrive at the Brompton Oratory? Was it by trial and error, or was that one of the first you walked into and enjoyed it so much you revisited it regularly?
I actually tested out a lot of churches, and in the meantime, while doing that, became so disillusioned by what I was hearing, I kind of gave it all up.
Nick, do you find the pressures on smokers these days makes it a bit harder to get through certain circumstances? And that being the case, have you got a durry on you?
I do.
Well, I tell you what, it's unusual to see people smoking on television these days. So we thought we'd
smoke
give it a
Irish
shot.
cigarettes.
Oh, Irish cigarettes, sure.
Major.
Yeah, do you want to have one?
I'll have one, yeah. Would you like one?
Oh, why not? One in, all in.
You gonna have one?
No, I'll pass.
Go on.
Yeah, listen, I mightn't light it, but I'll use it as a prop.
They're good for you. It says here, it says smoking is very good for you.
Yes,
Yes,
but
they improve your health.
every New Year's I make a resolution to take up smoking and go down and buy a carton of something at the local store. And
Yeah.
after a couple of days, I have to give it away.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just can't stick with it.
No.
But thanks for this.
When do you have your first durry of a morning? Nick,
Yours isn't going.
No, I'll give it a go. When do you first light up? Was it before you have a cup of coffee, or do you have a packet beside the bed?
Well, it depends. I light up all through the night, actually. I smoke about every 2 hours.
Can you smoke while you're asleep?
No, I wake up especially to have a cigarette.
To have a cigarette?
I do, yeah.
Bloody hell, that's committed. Now, you've always been interested in art, and in fact, painting was going to be the one for you, and not music. I think you.
I wanted to
if
be a
I'm wrong
painter.
here, I think you felt an imposter in the world of music, and I don't know whether that's because you felt you wanted to be a painter first. But what sort of daubings were you interested in? More your Francis Bacon sort of grotesque imagery, or what?
Well, it was my art teacher. The reason why I failed was that my art teacher decided my art was sleazy. She said she could not relate to sleazy art.
Yes.
And I kind of went about painting sleazier and sleazier pictures, and they failed me.
Now, when you say sleazy, what do you mean? What do you mean by sleazy? Blokes with snot coming out of them?
That's not sleazy.
No. Someone with a knife in them, or...
No, that's not sleazy. The last painting I did was of a muscle man and a ballerina. The ballerina was bending over, and the muscle man was looking at the ballerina's dress, and there was a kind of a dot.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good.
To her private parts.
To her
Now,
fundament.
right. What seems to be a recurring theme in your music is one of enormous disappointment, disenchantment, and disillusionment. Was that the same for? Is that why you wanted sleaze? It was disillusionment as well.
I was young.
Yes.
I was young and was interested in ballerinas' fundaments.
So you saw yourself as the muscle man with the ...
Yeah, exactly. And as I grew older, I grew wiser and sadder and more disillusioned.
Disillusioned after you saw the ballerina's gear, or you were expecting something else?
Do you want me to answer that?
Well, I suppose. I mean, if you know, part of the thrust of life in those days was to cop a geek, so to speak, and then you copped a geek and left art.
But I begin on another tack. You're one of the few people, I think, who are right in saying who, when they turned 40, more or less cheered. You don't mind being 40. Why?
I've always felt old, actually.
Right.
I've always felt, as a young man, old. And the older I get, the more
Easier it
comfortable I
becomes.
become.
Yeah. It's fair to say, you know, for most people, you've trodden the rougher side of the road. Do you think there is an evil or a sense of evil about, or, you know, that you encounter in your travels on the other side of the street?
I do, yeah. I think that there's
And how does that express itself?
I mean, I personally think that we're kind of born innocent, and that life makes us evil as people.
Is everybody able to be as evil as each other?
I think, well, look, I think we all have the capacity for evil, and we all have the capacity for extreme evil, and we all have the capacity for goodness as well. And, you know, one would hope.
But evil
Do our
lurks-
best to be decent human beings,
Yes.
and you know. That would...
But evil lurks very much under the surface. This veneer of socialisation we have is very, very thin, a thin gossamer, is it not? I mean, you've only got to look at Kosovo to appreciate that evil can break out at the drop of a hat, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And is that the evil that not so much interests you, but that you dwell upon? Is that what causes this melancholy?
My melancholy comes from other things. It has nothing to do with evil.
No.
I think that we all have a melancholy side. I think that society actually has a problem with sadness. They don't like sadness. They try to cure sadness. They have therapy to cure sadness, and I actually don't think that sadness is necessarily a bad thing. I think that it's something that's an essential part of our character, particularly an artistic character.
Yeah, well, certain cultures celebrate sadness. I notice at the moment you're living in Ireland. Well, certainly the Irish love nothing more than a wake.
They do.
They're dancing in the streets when somebody dies. Is that what you mean, a celebration of sadness?
I think that they have an understanding of that side of their nature, and are happy to express it.
You're an artist who's happy to talk about the muse. The muse, you know, I take it in the artistic sense of visiting the artist and helping the artist with their work. You know, and you're quite protective of this thing that you describe as a muse. How does that operate?
That was the nicest cigarette I've ever had. Actually,
Terrific, yes.
that I could actually have it on a TV program.
Yes. Well, you don't see smokes being smoked on the Des O'Connor show, for example.
But to answer your question, actually I forgot what it was.
It was about the muse.
Well, the muse to me is something that needs to be looked after and honoured, and I think that your creative talents can abandon you if you abuse them.
Now, have you had any experience of doing something which, you know, for want of a better term, the muse objected to, or...?
Yeah, I have, actually. There's one thing that haunts me to this day, is that I agreed to write a song for the Batman film, and someone rang up and said, would you write a song for the Batman film? And I thought, my muse said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But I thought, I went ahead and did it, and made an incredible amount of money, and wrote the song in about, I don't know, 25 seconds or something like that.
Yes.
And made a huge amount of money for doing it, and because the record went platinum in America. But I've always felt, that's always troubled me, actually. I always feel I have to pay for that in some way. I'm not quite sure how.
Well, I notice it may be dissimilar, I don't know, but Brett Whiteley always worried about the muse leaving him. It was one of the great sources of distress in his life. Is that a fear that you have, that you can wake up one day and it's extinguished, whatever the wellspring might be?
It used to be a fear. I used to live permanently. I mean, I used to look at other rock musicians and see the inevitable thing that happens with them,
Yes.
with so many of them. But I think that if you do the very things that we were talking about before, if you look after this, you're with it. You're a talented person. There's no reason why why it should abandon you. I think what a lot of people do is that they feel that they have to remain young, and I think this is the great pitfall, particularly in what I'm doing, is to kind of chase after youth. And ultimately, you're going to lose, and everything's going to go horribly wrong.
Whereas certainly early music of yours seemed to me to be far more aggressive than the music is now. Is that a natural thing as one does get older, as you grow into your age, that melancholy may well replace anger?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the great Oscar Wilde said something about that. He said that you can't receive grace in a state of rebellion, and I would say that the creative process is a pursuit of grace in some way. And you know, that's what I would be trying to do.
I noticed there was a quote in one of the pop magazines here in the United Kingdom that described you as the negative of Engelbert Humperdinck. Have you ever thought of maybe doing a duet with someone of Engelbert's ilk?
There would be people of his ilk that I perhaps would consider. Tom Jones, perhaps, who I've always been a fan of, but I've never liked Engelbert.
No.
I always thought he was kind of wet.
Yes, well, a bucket of water, really, with trousers.
You're quite taken by Barry White's gear, though.
I love Barry White. Yeah. Barry White's, he's got it.
He uses sex, Barry White, doesn't he?
He's a very, very sexy man, yeah. I think he makes some of the sexiest music I've ever heard.
Nick, we could talk all night, probably about the devil and the dark matter, and probably will over a couple of rougher altar wines upstairs later in the show. But for now, Planeteers, can you whack away at the fists and reduce them to bloodied pulp until they drop off as a way of thanking Nick Cave?
Out of the dark came Nick Cave, talking sounds both deep and grey. Nick
Yes, sadly we come to the end of the Planet Norwich for another week. Roy, what are you up to in the coming set of 7?
HC, I'm off to the Norwich Kitchen Centre.
Yes.
There's 20% off German kitchens this week.
Yes. Only this week?
Only this week.
Yes.
So I'm very keen to have a look. I believe the oven's very small, but the abattoir that comes with the kitchen is enormous.
Yeah.
So you can do your own slaughtering, German style, before...
Eating.
Yes.
Roy, look, it's the Norwich Festival this week, and obviously I've got the program here. And look, I'm going to a very special day at the Cinema City. It's 2 hours of train films. These are obviously, you know, train spotters, you know, from all over the world will be coming. It's under the banner this year of nationalisation 50 years on, so I'm very interested. I understand Richard Branson was planning to come, but his train's running late. Alan Wilmot is presenting some rare footage of narrow gauge lines.
Ah, yes, that 3-inch gauge.
Oh, isn't that?
Isn't that a magical gauge?
It was only used for about a year and a half.
Yes, I think the Great Eastern had, just before I.K. Brunel took over, had the 3-inch gauge, and then they changed it to the, I think, the
12-foot
480-inch gauge,
right,
your fat gauge.
Yes. Look, it's
tremendous.
It's on next Tuesday at 6 p.m. at Cinema City here in Norwich. And look, if you are interested in things going into dark places, you might be wise to get along. And now, on behalf of Roy and myself, I'd like to thank all our guests, the Cheddar Singles, Lord Cheese in his lunchbox, and you at home on the tug, on the rug. Thanks once again for taking an interest in variety. And we leave you this week with a tune that allows you to turn the lights down low, waltz the weird, and do the metaphysical mambo. The singer, Nick Cave, the song, Into My Arms. See you next week, Planeteers, when once again we blast into orbit.
I don't believe in an interventionist God. I know, darling, that you do. But if I did, I would kneel down and ask him not to intervene when it came to you. Well, not to touch your hair and your head, leave him as you are. If he felt he had to direct you, then direct you into my arms. Into my arms, oh Lord. Into my arms, oh Lord. Into my arms, oh Lord. Into my arms. And I don't believe in the existence of angels. Looking at you, I wonder if that's true. But if I did, I would summon them together and ask them to watch over you. To each burn a candle for you, to make bright and clear your path, and to walk like Christ in grace and love and guide you into my arms. Into my arms, oh Lord. Into my arms, oh Lord. Into my arms, oh Lord. Into my arms. I believe in love, and I know that you do too. And I believe we can choose our path. And we can walk it, me and you. So keep those candles burning, make a journey bright and pure, that you'll keep returning always and evermore.